if you don't know much about the moon and you don't know much about ETs and things like that, then none of this makes any sense. But if you know more and more and more about it, then a whole bigger picture begins to unfold. You really can't avoid it anymore.
Studied it, mapped it, and even walked on its dusty surface.
The lunar soil has been absorbing helium-3 for billions of years.
But what if there's more to the moon than meets the eye? What if there's a secret the astronauts didn't want us to know?
Without a liquid molten mantle, true moonquakes can last for over 10 minutes.
Recordings from famous moon missions contain discoveries so bizarre, so unbelievable, that they shook the scientific community. Are they some hoaxes? A technical glitch? Or are we about to witness the biggest astronomical discoveries of all time? Today, I will unveil these lunar mysteries and uncover the truth behind what NASA recorded on the moon. Let's dive in. Discovery of helium. Can our quest for clean energy take us beyond Earth? Well, it did. Helium-3, a rare isotope known for its clean fusion potential, has drawn scientists' eyes to the moon. Unlike Earth, the moon doesn't have a magnetic field to shield it, so for billions of years, the sun's wind has been blowing this gas onto the moon's surface. Scientists believe helium-3 could be the fuel for a new kind of nuclear fusion reactor, one that's safer and doesn't leave behind radioactive waste. Sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? Back in 1972, an astronaut, Harrison Schmitt, who actually walked on the moon, discovered helium-3 there. Since then, he's been a big voice for this idea. Another champion of helium-3 fusion is Gerald Kolchinsky, who even built a small test reactor to see if it could work. Besides helium-3, what other resources on the moon do you think hold promise for Earth? Discovery of water.
Water spread across the rest of the moon would make it much easier for astronauts to live and work there.
What if I tell you there's evidence of water on the moon? Not giant oceans or anything, but hidden pockets of ice. Scientists have known about this ice in permanently shadowed craters near the poles since the 1970s. Pretty cool, right? But guess what? In 2020, they found something even more surprising. They discovered tiny amounts of water molecules scattered around the moon like dust. But where did this water come from? Maybe it's leftover from crashes of comets, asteroids, or meteoroids billions of years ago. Some of these might have carried water that froze in those permanently dark craters. This idea has been around for a while, and in the 1970s, a Soviet mission called Lunar 24 even found clues to support it. But there's another possibility. What if tiny particles from the sun continued hitting the moon's surface over long periods? Over time, these particles could have slowly mixed with the moon rocks and turned into water molecules. This theory started gaining attention in the late 2000s. Finding water on the moon is a big deal. Water is super important for life, and if we ever build a moon base, having water readily available would be amazing. This big discovery in 2020 is a huge step forward for future trips to the moon. Imagine being a moon explorer taking a sip of water made right there. Super cool, wouldn't that be? Lunar pits. Have you ever dreamt of living on the moon? The idea is definitely cool, but there's a big problem. The moon's environment is super harsh. During the day, the surface gets hot enough to boil water, and at night, it's colder than anywhere on Earth. But what if there was a hidden haven, a place with a comfy temperature that would be perfect for future moon explorers? Scientists funded by NASA might have discovered just that. Using special cameras and data from a spacecraft called Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, they've spotted mysterious pits on the moon. These pits seem to have a constant temperature of around 63 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like a cool autumn day. Isn't it strange that the rest of the moon's surface acts like a huge oven during the day and a deep freezer at night? So, what makes these pits different? Theories suggest that these pits could actually be collapsed lava tubes, like huge tunnels that formed from ancient lava flows. The edges of a few pits point to the existence of larger caves hidden behind them. Wouldn't it be amazing to explore a real cave on the moon? And if these caves do exist, they might offer much more than just a little stay. Who knows, maybe you get to experience staying in these lunar caves someday? Wouldn't that be amazing? Hermite crater. Forget the deep freezer. There's a place in our solar system that puts your freezer to shame. You must be thinking of Pluto. But no, not even Pluto is this cold. So where is this hidden icebox? Believe it or not, it's right up there in our own moon. In 2009, it was discovered by NASA. A crater named Hermite holds the record for the coldest spot ever recorded, reaching a bone-chilling minus 247 degrees Celsius. But what makes Hermite so frigid? It's a big crater near the moon's north pole, and because of its location, some parts are permanently covered in shadow. No sunlight ever reaches these areas, making them the coldest spots known to us. But that's not all. Scientists believe this eternal darkness might be hiding something even cooler. Because of the constant shadows, some studies suggest there could be a huge stash of ice hiding at the bottom of Hermite. Wouldn't that be incredible? Ice on the moon. However, some scientists remain skeptical. They emphasize the need for more data to definitively confirm the presence of subsurface ice. Honestly, apart from ice, what if it's a hiding spot for something terrifying? Lunar mountains. Have you ever gazed at the full moon and wondered what secrets it might hold? Back in the 1600s, people believed that the moon was a perfect, smooth sphere. But then, a curious astronomer named Galileo Galilei came along and shattered that smooth, round illusion. One night, Galileo pointed his brand-new telescope at the moon and saw something incredible: mountains and valleys. Far from the perfect sphere believed for centuries, Galileo revealed the moon's true nature, a bumpy, rugged world much like our own. This shattered a long-held belief. For hundreds of years, people had accepted the ideas of the ancient Greek thinker Aristotle, who believed the moon to be flawless. Galileo's groundbreaking observations challenged this age-old belief. Actually, Galileo wasn't the first person to think the moon might be a little bumpy. Way back in Roman times, another clever guy named Plutarch thought the moon had mountains too. But his ideas didn't get much attention. Galileo, however, had something Plutarch didn't: the proof. His amazing telescope allowed him to see the moon in a whole new light. He even drew detailed pictures of what he saw and published them in a book. Most people thought Galileo's discovery about the moon was pretty cool, but then Galileo took things a step further and did something a bit more daring. He started saying that Earth wasn't the center of everything, as everyone believed. In fact, he thought Earth and other planets revolved around the sun, not the other way around. This was a big problem at that time. The Church then believed that Earth held a special place in the universe, and Galileo's ideas caused a lot of trouble for himself. In the end, Galileo was right about both the moon and the sun. And even though he faced challenges, Galileo's discoveries helped us see the universe in a whole new way. What other secrets might be waiting for us on the moon, just beyond our sight? Rilles. The moon might be our closest neighbor in space, but it's got some hidden secrets. Let's talk about Rilles, the long, narrow ditches on the moon. They were first spotted way back in the 1800s by astronomers. They can be a few kilometers wide and super long, stretching for hundreds of kilometers. But Rilles aren't all created equal. There are two main types: the straight and narrow, and the ones that wind and turn like a lazy river. What could have caused these rilles on the moon's surface? Were they caused by the moon shrinking or something else? The curvy rilles are even more interesting. Scientists suspect they might be leftover channels from ancient lava flows. But the lava on the moon must have been super runny compared to what we see on Earth, because these lunar rivers are very twisty. Even though astronauts explored one of these curvy rilles, Hadley Rille in 1971, the exact origin remains a bit of a lunar mystery. So what do you think? Did these rilles form from cracks or rivers of molten rock? Lunar swirls. Have you ever noticed those strange, bright streaks on the moon? They're like fancy swirls decorating the dusty surface, and scientists have been confused about them for ages. These swirls show up everywhere, on both the dark, flat plains and the brighter, hilly areas. But what causes them? No one's sure how they are exactly formed. However, there have been some wild guesses. Some believe that these swirls may be special hiding spots that shield the moon from the sun's rays. Meanwhile, others think they may be leftover scars from really old asteroid crashes. But none of these ideas is a proven fact. So, scientists decided to solve the mystery from a new angle. They looked at the moon's highs and lows like hills and valleys. They call this topography. They thought maybe the swirls might appear in specific high or low spots. In the past, scientists thought the swirls didn't care about the moon's bumpy landscape. But guess what? By looking at super detailed maps from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, scientists observed that the bright parts of the swirls were actually a bit lower than the darker surroundings. This weird pattern showed up in two completely different swirl locations, which makes it harder to ignore. The mystery deepens. Scientists are puzzled by the unexpectedly bright patches in the moon's craters. Could these be caused by dust redistribution? Perhaps impacts from small meteoroids stir up the lunar surface, or maybe electrostatic forces are at play, lifting dust particles and filling in the depressions. Even though this new study doesn't completely solve the mystery, it's a big step forward. It shows that the moon's bumpy bits might be important in making these strange swirls. What do you think? Could this be the key to unlocking the mystery of the lunar swirls? Moonquakes. The moon is shrinking. Imagine a huge grape slowly turning into a raisin. That's a simplified analogy for the moon's fate as it cools over centuries. Unlike a raisin's wrinkled skin, the moon's brittle crust fractures as it shrinks. These fractures, known as thrust faults, can even trigger moonquakes. How strong are these moonquakes? Scientists aren't really sure, but some might be as powerful as 5 earthquakes together on Earth. A new study published in May 2019 in the journal Nature Geoscience by Thomas Waters and his team added another clue to our understanding of moonquakes. By analyzing data from the Apollo mission's seismometers with a special new algorithm, they were able to point to the location of the moonquakes much more accurately, leading us close to solving the mystery of moonquakes. By studying super detailed pictures of the moon taken by NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spacecraft, scientists can see these faults and even spot landslides that might be caused by recent moonquakes. It's mind-blowing that scientists can use information from missions almost 50 years ago, along with new pictures from space, to keep learning more about the moon. The mystery of remote viewing. Have you ever heard of someone claiming to visit faraway places with just their mind? That's what Ingo Swann, an artist who claimed paranormal abilities, said he could do. He called it remote viewing, like a superpowered tourist traveling anywhere, anytime, without leaving his chair. Was he just making things up, or was there something more to his visions? Back in the 1970s, things took a wild turn for Ingo. You must have heard of some shadowy government projects that explore strange stuff. Well, that's exactly what happened to Ingo. The CIA, America's top spy agency, recruited him for a top-secret mission. They used his mind travel skills to check out the moon. Can you imagine using your mind to explore another world? The CIA gave Ingo specific descriptions for different spots on the moon's surface. Then, Ingo used his remote viewing to see what was there. The information he gathered was classified beyond the highest security clearance. Every detail remained a closely guarded government secret. But guess what Ingo claimed to have seen? He claimed he saw buildings on the moon, like a space airport maybe. This got everyone thinking, could there really be aliens living up there? He didn't stop there. He described seeing human-like figures moving around. Plus, he saw strange tracks on the moon's surface, similar to what a car or some machine leaves on Earth's surface. But wait, things are about to get stranger. Ingo even claimed to have noticed patterns on the moon that looked way too perfect to be natural. It was like someone planned them out carefully. When Ingo focused on these human-like figures, he said they looked right back at him even though he wasn't physically there. Convinced of potential dangers, he reported his concerns to the CIA, ultimately leading to the project's closure in 1977. So did Ingo really see aliens on the moon with his mind? A lot of Ingo Swann's work, especially the secret government stuff involving remote viewing of the moon, was classified. This meant he couldn't tell anyone a word about it. It was when he retired in 1989 that things loosened up a bit, and people could see his claims were based on real experiences. Do you think there's any truth to Ingo Swann's story? Discovery of animals. Can you recall any of the stories you heard that sounded too dramatic to be true? Well, this one is like those stories. Back in 1835, a newspaper called the New York Sun published a crazy story that had everyone talking. They claimed a famous astronomer named John Herschel had built a super-powerful telescope and discovered all sorts of creatures living on the moon. What would it feel like to find life in another world? The article said these discoveries were totally real, but sadly, the huge telescope that spotted them all got destroyed in a fire. Later, the whole incident was named the Great Moon Hoax, because it was, in fact, nothing more than a bunch of lies and a full, planned hoax. Alien Orchestra. Darkness envelops the room. A melody seemingly out of place fills the air, played by a human or something else entirely. That's exactly what the astronauts of Apollo 10 experienced half a century ago. Back in 1969, just a month before the very first moon landing, a mission called Apollo 10 blasted off. Their job was to practice orbiting the moon before the big landing. Everything seemed to be going well until something weird happened. The astronauts on Apollo 10 reported hearing some super strange noises while they were on the dark side of the moon, the part that never faces Earth. Some people believe these sounds could be music from aliens, like an outer space orchestra playing a concert. Sounds spooky, right? The recordings of these sounds were kept a secret for almost 50 years, but NASA finally released them in 2016. How would it feel to hear mysterious sounds in the silence of space? The Moon Pyramids. What's the possibility of a secret alien civilization hiding out on the moon? Some people believe there are pyramids on the moon. A UFO hunter named Mark Walsh had pointed to certain NASA photos as proof. They say these pictures show pyramids on the moon, especially near a crater called the Rilles Arideus. Some photos from the Apollo 17 mission have even been called into question, with some folks saying they captured hidden pyramids. Do you think there could really be ancient structures on the moon? Cities on the moon. The moon has been a fascination for us for centuries. Back in the 1800s, an astronomer named Franz von claimed he saw whole cities on the moon with his fancy telescope. Is it possible to see real things on the moon with a telescope, or is it all just tricks of light and shadow? Even a famous astronomer named Sir William Herschel thought there might be alien civilizations living on the moon. Some people believe these moon people might be hiding underground. Maybe they built huge tunnels beneath the lunar surface. Interestingly, there is some evidence that supports this idea. India's Chandrayaan-1 spacecraft spotted some things that could be tunnels on the dark side of the moon. But scientists believe these are actually leftover lava tubes, like giant caves formed by ancient lava flows. Still, some people think these caves might be home to moon people. Von Karman. Imagine exploring the moon and suddenly finding something totally unexpected. That's exactly what happened to China's Yutu-2 rover, part of the Chang'e 4 mission. While moving around on the far side of the moon, the part we never see from Earth, Yutu-2 spotted something strange in a crater called Von Karman. It looked like a gel-like substance, kind of like alien jelly. The color and texture were totally different from the usual moon dust everywhere else. Scientists used a fancy tool on the rover to analyze it, but they're still scratching their heads about what this mysterious gel could be. Have you ever seen anything strange or unexpected while looking at space pictures? What did it look like? The Mystery Cube. Back in 2021, China's Yutu-2 rover was moving around the moon when it spotted something strange in the distance. It looked like a little cube or hut sitting on the lunar surface. This discovery shook the scientific community. Was it an alien building? An ancient moon hut left behind by some long-lost civilization? Well, upon closer inspection, scientists figured out this mysterious cube was a rock. Just a moon rock. It wasn't even really a perfect cube shape. Do you think it's important to keep an open mind when looking at space exploration pictures, even if the answer might end up being something ordinary? The glass spheres. China's Yutu-2 rover is continuously finding strange things. Another thing it spotted, not one, but two weird glass objects on the far side of the moon. These glassy things are perfectly round, almost like huge glass marbles. What would it be like to find something completely unexpected while exploring another world? Scientists are still figuring out how they formed, but they have some ideas. One theory is that a superfast meteorite slammed into the moon, and the impact melted some of the lunar rock, kind of like making glass on Earth. Have you ever seen a type of glass that looks unusual? The UFO. You must have heard of stories about astronauts seeing UFOs in space. In 1972, on NASA's Apollo 16 mission, the fifth successful moon landing, astronauts John Young, Thomas Mattingly, and Charles Duke were on their way back from the moon when they saw something strange. They were filming with a movie camera when they captured about 4 seconds of footage that showed a flying plate hovering above the moon. The astronauts reported seeing this object for a few seconds. They said it was a UFO. Do you think this footage is really a UFO, or is there another explanation? Some people believe the object in the footage could be something ordinary, astronauts' camera malfunctioning or a piece of space waste. Do you think there's any truth to the idea of aliens living on the moon? Why or why not? Moon dust. Moon travel might seem exciting to you, but the moon itself can be a dangerous place, and one of the biggest threats comes from something you might not expect. Moon dust. Moon dust, also known as lunar regolith, is more like super sharp, irritating powder that covers the moon's entire surface. It's been building up for billions of years from tiny meteoroids slamming into the moon. Have you ever seen a close-up picture of the moon's surface? It doesn't look very dusty, does it? That's because the dust particles are actually very fine. Unlike the dust we have on Earth, moon dust is rough and can actually damage things. It can cling to spacesuits, spacecraft, and machinery, causing all sorts of problems. Inhaling or even swallowing moon dust would be super dangerous for astronauts. It can irritate the lungs and cause other health problems. Luckily, astronauts always wear helmets on the moon, so breathing in dust isn't a possibility. But this sticky, sharp dust can still be a big challenge for keeping moon equipment working properly. During the Apollo missions, astronauts even reported problems with moon dust sticking to their spacesuits. This worried scientists about the possibility of long-term health effects. Moon dust might sound like a minor inconvenience, but it can be a serious obstacle to exploring the moon. Do you think moon dust is more of a danger to astronauts' health or to the equipment they use? Well, that's a lot to unpack. So guys, that was it. Hope you enjoyed the video. The moon is full of surprises, isn't it? From water ice to strange glass spheres, it seems like there's always something being discovered. What do you think is the biggest mystery the moon holds? And which of these discoveries was your favorite? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting content. Until next time.